thought to that to give you the best possible answer. But I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to, a natural human tendency is wishful thinking.
Ever feel like your career's crazy busy, but going nowhere? That's because 80% of your work is just fake and useless. This is where most founders and leaders get trapped, not because they are incapable, but because they are operating in a way that feels productive while producing nothing meaningful. Elon Musk offers 7 simple rules to kill it. Let's dive in. One of the first rules that quietly separates people who recover from those who decline is this: eliminate false work. You know what I mean? Like those endless meetings that lead nowhere? In many organizations, especially at leadership levels, time gets consumed by meetings, discussions, and communication loops that create the illusion of progress. In fact, excessive meetings are widely criticized as a drain on productivity because they consume large amounts of time without always creating value. A failing career often hides behind this exact pattern. You attend, you contribute, you respond, but you do not move anything forward. Real progress begins when you start asking a different question: what actually creates movement? And then removing everything that doesn't. This leads to a deeper principle: action must replace explanation. And as you are thinking right now of what you could change, many professionals become highly skilled at explaining problems. They can describe what is broken, why it is broken, and who is responsible. But explanation, by itself, is not leadership. It is observation. Careers begin to recover when explanation turns into intervention, when you stop narrating the problem and start altering it. Leaders who create change tend to engage directly in the work rather than observing from a distance, reinforcing accountability and execution. Another rule emerges here, and it is uncomfortable: work at a level others avoid. There is a reason extreme outcomes are rare. They are tied to levels of effort most people are unwilling to sustain. High performers are often associated with unusually intense work habits and long hours, reflecting a belief that extraordinary output requires extraordinary input. This is not about glorifying burnout.
Versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit. And that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis.
But here's the thing: working harder alone won't save you. The next rule is where most people completely get it wrong, and it is more strategic. Think from first principles, not from imitation. Have you ever copied someone and it flopped? Here's why. Many leaders operate by analogy. They copy what others are doing, adopt best practices, and follow established models. But real breakthroughs happen when you break problems down to their fundamentals and rebuild from there. This approach, often described as first principles thinking, focuses on understanding core truths instead of relying on assumptions. Careers stagnate when people optimize outdated systems instead of questioning whether those systems should exist at all. There is also a communication rule that quietly determines influence: clarity over complexity, but complexity slows execution. Clear communication accelerates it. Removing unnecessary language, simplifying ideas, and making direction obvious reduces friction across teams. And friction is often the invisible force behind poor performance. Another hidden rule that quietly separates those who recover from those who continue to decline is this: leave what wastes your time, even if it feels uncomfortable. Many professionals remain in environments, conversations, or processes where they are not creating value. They stay in unnecessary meetings, prolonged discussions, and unproductive workflows, not because these things are useful, but because leaving feels awkward, impolite, or risky. Try this. In the next pointless call, just say, "I gotta leave, let's email." This works every time. There is a subtle pressure to appear cooperative, engaged, and present. But over time, this behavior becomes costly. High performers understand this at a deeper level. They do not treat wasted time as a minor inconvenience. They treat it as a direct cost to their progress. They are willing to step away from what does not move the mission forward, even when it feels uncomfortable in the moment. At a deeper psychological level, there is another rule that most people avoid confronting. Stop negotiating with discomfort. A failing career often becomes a pattern of avoidance. Difficult conversations are delayed, bold decisions are postponed, and visible risks are minimized. The logic seems reasonable. You wait until you feel more ready, more confident, or more certain. But that moment rarely arrives. Discomfort is interpreted as a signal to pause, when in reality, it is often a signal that something important is at stake. Growth tends to sit on the other side of tension, not comfort. The leaders who recover are not the ones who feel the most prepared or confident. They are the ones who act despite uncertainty, repeatedly. They understand that discomfort is not the enemy. It is often an indicator that they are moving in a direction that matters. But even when you push through discomfort, there's one more trap waiting. And it's the sneakiest one of all. This connects directly to another critical shift. Be useful, not impressive. Many careers stall because individuals become focused on perception rather than impact. They want to be seen as capable, intelligent, or strategic. They invest energy in how they are perceived instead of what they actually produce. They speak in ways that sound sophisticated, participate in ways that appear valuable, and position themselves as contributors, yet the measurable outcomes remain unchanged. Real progress begins when this focus shifts. The delay between effort and results. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of progress. You can begin making better decisions, taking more disciplined action, and applying consistent effort, yet see little to no immediate change in your external situation. That gap creates doubt. It creates the feeling that nothing is working. And for many people, that feeling becomes the reason they stop. They interpret the lack of visible results as proof that their actions are ineffective. But in reality, the process is often working beneath the surface. Results take time to materialize. There is a lag between cause and effect, and most people abandon the process during that lag. This is why another rule becomes essential. Consistency beats intensity. Sound familiar? The key is just showing up daily. There is also an identity shift beneath all of this that plays a crucial role. It is the way you interpret your situation. People who remain stuck tend to focus on constraints. They think about what they cannot control, what is unfair, what is missing, and what is limiting them. This perspective narrows their sense of possibility and reduces their willingness to act. On the other hand, people who move forward focus on leverage. They look at what they can influence, what they can improve, and what is still within their control. The situation itself may be the same, but the interpretation changes the response, and the response determines the outcome. One mindset leads to action, while the other leads to hesitation. And here's the final rule that ties everything together. At this point, the underlying truth becomes clear. A failing career is rarely the result of a lack of intelligence, talent, or opportunity. More often, it is the result of patterns. Patterns of thinking, patterns of acting, patterns of avoiding, and patterns of interpreting reality. These patterns operate quietly, shaping behavior over time. And because they feel normal, they are rarely questioned. But they continue to produce the same outcomes until they are deliberately interrupted. Change does not happen by accident. It happens when those patterns are replaced with new ones that lead in a different direction. The final rule is both simple and difficult. Do the work consistently, even when it feels like it is not working. This is the phase where most people stop. It is the phase where effort has begun, but results have not yet appeared. It is the phase where doubt is strongest and motivation is weakest, but it is also the phase where progress is quietly forming. Persistence matters more here than talent, strategy, or initial enthusiasm. Those who continue through this phase are the ones who eventually see change. Not because they found a perfect method, but because they stayed with the process long enough for it to produce something meaningful. In the end, careers do not usually collapse in a single moment. They drift. They drift through small decisions, repeated avoidance, and unnoticed patterns. And they do not recover through ideas alone. They recover through action, repeated long enough to matter. Most people understand this conceptually. They know that consistency, effort, and discipline are important. But understanding is not what creates change. Action is. And that is the part most people recognize, but very few actually follow through on. If this made you rethink how you're working, subscribe for more ideas that challenge your habits and help you actually move forward. Comment down below which rule hit you the hardest. Which one will you implement right away?